Ancient Native American civilizations, bold Spanish explorers, famous authors, pioneers, war heroes, gamblers, gangsters, Hollywood celebrities, pirates. Fort Walton Beach in Northwest Florida has a rich past that's as colorful as it is diverse. The small city is well known as a gateway to some of the world's most beautiful white sand beaches. Although, ironically, there is no Gulf-front property actually contained within our city limits. You have to cross the Intracoastal Canal over to Okaloosa Island to frolic in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But beachfront or not, this bustling city has an urban edge, and yet she somehow retains a casual coastal small-town vibe. Designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1964, Fort Walton Beach's Temple Mound was once the center of one of the Gulf Coast's largest and most advanced Native American civilizations.
Native Americans were in this part of the Gulf Coast going back almost 10,000 years. The last group of people that were here were called the Mississippian Mound Builders. They're the ones who built the large earthen mound on this location. That mound site was begun about 800 AD, finished about 1400 AD.
This mound is 17 feet tall and 223 feet long across the base. It was the centerpiece of a large cluster of mounds located in the heart of what is now downtown Fort Walton Beach.
Mound building is an activity that Native American people all over the United States took part in. It was done for lots of different reasons, but the mound in Fort Walton Beach is what's called a temple mound. It was built to be a political and religious center for the community, the town that was around it. Atop the temple mound would have lived the most elite senior member of the group. They would have been the political leader, the religious leader. So this was the center of a thriving community here.
Today, Fort Walton Beach's Indian Temple Mound Museum displays 14,000-year-old stone tools and wares left behind by the area's primitive hunters, the Paleo Indians, all the way up to the Mississippian prehistoric Indians. Now, some fuddy-duddy historians claim that there is scant evidence of pirates frequenting Fort Walton Beach. But tell that to the thousands of one-eyed peglegs who raid these shores every year during the Billy Bowlegs Pirate Festival.
There is no good record of a specific pirate here in what's now downtown Fort Walton Beach. But the area and the waterways are too good to have not been used by pirates, privateers, and smugglers. You have an easy protected waterway leading to Pensacola. You have no settlements in the immediate area, so you could do nefarious activities without a lot of witnesses. And you can easily hide a boat or two in Choctawhatchee Bay. So piracy certainly absolutely happened in this area. There's not a good historical record of it because people usually don't record well their crimes that they're committing against major empires and major states.
The tradition celebrates the legend of Captain Billy Bowlegs, a fictional rascal based only very loosely on a nautical merchant named William Augustus Bowles. He supposedly buried his booty along the shores of the Gulf and in its adjoining lagoons and bayous. The gold treasure may never have existed, although the booty still makes an appearance every year. The festival culminates in a staged duel between the marauding Bowlegs and Fort Walton Beach's sitting mayor, while the rest of the celebration plays out among a sea of naughty nautical debauchery. But what about the fort in Fort Walton Beach? Where's the actual fort? Well, there never was a fort per se. The city takes her name from a Civil War encampment that was established here in 1861 by the Confederacy's 1st Florida Infantry, also known as the Walton Guards.
During the American Civil War, the city of Fort Walton did not exist yet. The city hadn't been founded. This place was the middle of nowhere, about 50 miles west of Pensacola. But right outside where the museum is the Narrows of Santa Rosa Sound, a narrow body of water that leads all the way to Pensacola, where There was an important Navy base and an important city. The Confederate government decided they needed a military presence here, right on the Narrows. So in the spring of 1861, a group of Confederate volunteer infantry that called themselves the Walton Guard, because they were recruited in Walton County, they were placed here because there is convenient high ground. The prehistoric Indian Temple Mound sits right on the water, and from the top of the Temple Mound, they could keep an eye on Santa Rosa Sound, the East Pass at Destin, and they could see out into the Gulf as well. They were keeping an eye on the back door to Pensacola.
Camp Walton was completely evacuated in the summer of 1862, and the Walton Guards went north to Tennessee, where they served as Company D of the 1st Florida Infantry. Their 18-pound cannon remained buried in the mound, only to be recovered many years later. That cannon is now on display at Fort Walton Beach's Heritage Park, where markers help interpret the history of the Native American culture and the Civil War encampments. After the Civil War, John Thomas Brooks became the first permanent white settler in this area. He and his wife Harriet landed their rowboat on the north shore of the Santa Rosa Sound in 1868. They built a solitary log cabin near the eastern end of present-day 1st Street, which became known as Brooks Landing. Back then, Brooks's 111-acre parcel of land was home to more bears than people. But by the early 1900s, Camp Walton was becoming a small but popular fishing and vacation retreat. The Brooks House, built along the Sound to accommodate the founder's growing family, was eventually converted into a hotel. Later, Dr. J.H. Beale, another early resident, thought Camp Walton deserved a more cosmopolitan moniker, and as early as 1918 he was lobbying hard for a name change. As a result of his efforts, in 1931, the community officially became known as Fort Walton. For years, Santa Rosa Sound was the town's only practical transportation link to the outside world. But Fort Walton began seeing significant land traffic in the 1930s when what is now called U.S. Highway 98 and the original swing-style Brooks Bridge were constructed. In the 1930s, Dr. Beale teamed up with the Brooks family to build a casino. Others followed. The Magnolia Club and the Shalimar Club became swanky hotspots for gambling, dancing, and nightly big band shows, attracting tourists and celebrities alike, including the likes of Gregory Peck, Andy Griffith, President Harry Truman, and even the infamous gangster Al Capone. By the 1940s, Fort Walton had become known as the Little Las Vegas of Florida. About the same time, the U.S. Army Air Corps built a military installation on the north shore of Choctawhatchee Bay. The small airport built there in 1933 became a bombing and gunnery base known as Eglin Field. Eventually, Eglin would become the largest military base in the nation, covering more than 724 square miles of land and 98,000 square miles of airspace over the Gulf of Mexico. In World War II, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle trained his famous Doolittle Raiders right here at Eglin. The group consisted of 80 volunteer airmen who flew 16 massive B-25 bombers from the deck of the USS Hornet on a daring one-way mission to bomb Tokyo, just to prove that we could. After dropping their payloads, the airmen jumped out of their bombers somewhere over China, hoping for the best. The feat stunned the Japanese and dramatically boosted American morale just 4 months after the Japanese had surprise attacked Pearl Harbor. On June 15, 1953, a new city charter renamed the town Fort Walton Beach in an attempt to clean up its somewhat tainted image earned by gamblers and other unsavory characters. But a few of those unsavories still slipped through the cracks. Following several arrests in high school, a young man was given the choice between prison and military service. He chose military service. And in 1956, a young Hunter S. Thompson was transferred to Eglin Air Force Base. While serving at Eglin, Thompson landed his first professional writing gig as the sports editor of the Command Courier. He had to lie to get the job, as he had no journalistic education or experience whatsoever. He later wrote a sports column for what is now known as the Northwest Florida Daily News. Thompson would go on to write investigative pieces for Rolling Stone magazine, as well as several now classic novels, many of which were made into feature films. Johnny Depp famously played Thompson in the 1998 movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Today, the gonzos and gamblers and gangsters are long gone. The Mounds and the war heroes remain. As for the pirates, who knows? Perhaps they never actually plundered these shores at all. But there's certainly a treasure. It's called Fort Walton Beach.